Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're embarking on an exploration into the extraordinary life, the legacy really, of Rabindranath Tagore, affectionately known as Gurudev.
Indeed, a towering figure.
And our mission, well, it's to distill the most compelling insights of fascinating details from the material we've gathered on this Indian literary and philosophical giant.
And he really was a giant.
No kidding. We're talking about someone quite unique, a prolific writer, sure, but also the first Asian to receive the Nobel Prize in literature.
A huge milestone.
And then there's this almost unbelievable fact that the only person credited with composing the national anthems for two different countries.
It's an incredible range of influence. And Tagore's story, it's not just about his personal genius. It's really a vital way to understand how art, how thought can fundamentally shape global culture.
And literature, too.
Exactly. Impacting generations way beyond his own time. His legacy is just incredibly important.
Okay, so let's unpack this right from the start. Tagore was born May 7th, 1861.
In Kolkata.
Right, Kolkata. And the sources describe his family as, well, privileged, but also incredibly intellectually vibrant. And from a very young age, he showed this deep, almost innate interest in literature and art. It wasn't just a hobby, It seems like it was his calling right from the beginning.
And that upbringing, you're right, it was absolutely instrumental. It nurtured those talents. Being in that environment gave him access to this unique mix of intellectual stimulation, resources, things that most people just didn't have then.
Sure.
And that's really the context for his revered name, Gurudev. It's a title of deep respect. It translates to something like revered teacher or master. It acknowledges not just, his literary skill, but his role as a kind of spiritual and intellectual guide for India and eventually for the world.
And what an unlighty he became through his writing. I mean, when you look at his literary output, it's not just vast, it's incredibly diverse.
It really is.
He wasn't just a poet, though obviously his poetry is legendary. But he also composed thousands of songs, wrote novels, plays, essays.
Across all these forms, yeah. And you always find this distinct fusion, this blend of Indian culture, nature, and really deep human emotions.
That fusion is key, I think.
Absolutely. And if we look at the bigger picture, that's why his works still resonate, why they cross language barriers, cultural barriers. It's that unique blend.
Yeah.
He skillfully wove together classical Indian traditions, poetry, music with maybe some European romantic sensibilities, lyrically speaking.
Interesting combination.
It resulted in work that felt deeply rooted, yes, but also universal.
Yeah.
It spoke about human feelings, our connection to nature, in a way that just connects with people, regardless of where they're from.
Okay, but if we narrow it down, the one work that really catapulted him onto the world stage, that has to be Gitanjali.
Oh, definitely. Gitanjali.
Yeah.
A monumental piece of work. It's a collection of devotional poems, and it directly led to him getting the 1913 Nobel Prize in Literature.
Which was just historic.
Utterly historic,
Yeah.
because it made him the very first Asian ever to receive that honor.
Yeah.
And what made Gitanjali so powerful globally was its unique mix of, mystical devotion, but also lyrical simplicity. It introduced a very Indian spiritual way of thinking to Western audiences, but in poetic forms they could access.
So it wasn't just about him getting recognition?
No, not at all. It fundamentally shifted the global literary landscape. It validated non-Western voices, non-Western traditions in a way that hadn't happened before. It brought immense honor to Indian culture worldwide.
His vision, though, it went way beyond just writing. He was deeply committed to education.
Yes, profoundly so.
And he actually put these ideas into practice. He established the school Shantiniketan.
Which eventually grew into Visvavaradi University.
Right, internationally recognized now.
And that institution, Shantiniketan, it's like a living embodiment of his philosophy.
How so?
Well, instead of the rigid rote learning common then, Tagore wanted a learning space that was deeply connected with nature, where creativity, self-expression, cultural roots, these were nurtured through art, music, dance, even practical skills.
Much more holistic approach.
Exactly. Aiming for the whole development of the person, intellect, character, all in harmony with the environment and, the broader human experience.
Now let's circle back to something we mentioned earlier because it's just astonishing. Rabindranath Tagore is the only individual credited with composing the national anthems for two separate countries.
That's quite remarkable.
Jana Gana Mana for India and Amar Shonar Bangla for Bangladesh. It's almost unique in history, isn't it?
It really makes you pause. And it raises an important question, doesn't it? What does it truly mean for one single artist's words to become the foundational voice, the anthem, for two distinct nations, resonating with millions across borders like that.
I suppose it just shows how deeply his poetry connected with the hopes, the identity of people across that whole region. His words became the source of pride, a symbol of collective spirit for two nations finding their modern footing.
Precisely. It really underscores the depth and the universal appeal of his poetry. That his creations could capture the very soul of different cultural movements, becoming anthems that still evoke such strong national feeling, shared heritage. It's powerful.
So looking at everything he did, it's so clear Tagore was much more than a poet. He was a true polymath.
Yes, absolutely. And by polymath, we really mean his genius wasn't just in one box. He achieved significant mastery, real influence, across so many different fields.
Like what specifically?
While he was a profound philosopher, his ideas shaped social, even political thought. He was a gifted painter, exploring nature, the human form in his art, and just a great thinker. His insights influenced education, global understanding.
So all these different facets fed into each other.
Exactly. They enriched his perspective, contributing to this holistic genius. That's why his ideas, his art had such a widespread and enduring impact. Even though he passed away August 7, 1941, his work, his philosophy, it continues to inspire. It still resonates today. It really cemented his role in elevating Indian culture and thought onto that global stage.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here? Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. He wasn't just writing for one nation. He wasn't just a literary figure. He was this monumental force who lifted Indian culture, Indian thought onto the world stage, earning this universal admiration for everything he contributed: literature, education, philosophy.
And perhaps here's a final thought, something for you, the listener, to consider. How can the multifaceted genius of just one person working through art and philosophy not only win international acclaim, but also profoundly shape the actual identity, the very spirit of nations for generations to come? What does Tagore's legacy really tell you about the enduring power of creative expression, its ability to cross borders, to transcend time, becoming part of a people's history, and maybe even their future?